your success is really based on your ability to ask great questions. I've met far more people who are good at answers than I have at questions.
Welcome back to the Team at AI podcast. I'm here with my friend Dan Sullivan for the first repeat guest, which I'm so excited about. I think we're gonna have a great time chatting. But Dan, starting off here, I want to talk about Mark Zuckerberg. So Facebook has notably become one of the biggest investors in the AI space. Kind of teeing this up for you. They've been one of the biggest investors in the AI space. Last I heard, they own something like 20% of all the NVIDIA chips. And they open sourced just a couple of weeks ago, they open sourced their first AI model that was as good as some of the closed ones, like with ChatGPT and with Claude and some of the other things. And Mark immediately went on an interview circuit, not really promoting the AI model that they had just released, but more explaining why he's doing it. And he said something that I thought was so interesting. He said, I don't consider this to be an altruistic endeavor. He said, I really consider this to be, you're making this AI model better so that we can use it. The other thing that he said that was really interesting, as I continue to sort of tee this up for you, was they released the AI model, but they also released the weights for the model, which is basically giving you the secret recipe on exactly how this AI works and what's going on under the hood. And when in his essay about releasing this AI model, he said, it's very easy for an overseas sort of like spy agent. I think he actually said a Chinese spy agent, to take the AI model and put it on a thumb drive. And so, I think it's better if everybody has this in their hands instead of just having a couple of large organizations or a couple of large governments having this in their hands. So that was the second thing that I thought was a really interesting take from Mark. The third was he said, we have a very different business model than a lot of the other tech companies that are investing heavily in AI right now. He said, if AI doesn't pan out to be what I think it's going to pan out to be, or what we all think it's going to pan out to be, he said, our business model is not predicated on AI's success alone. We can use all these investments that we're making to fund our existing business model and to continue to make our existing business model better, versus some of these other companies, they need AI to work because AI is the business model, or putting this infrastructure together is the business model. Now, I want to give you my take and I want to hear your reaction. My take is that I don't think that there was a better business model in history than in the last 30 years, the fact that you could build a piece of software once and you could resell it over and over and over again at near zero marginal cost, 70, 80% gross margin. And my take here is that I think we're a long way away from a true AI native business model, or like an AI first business model, coming in and being really profitable and driving major kind of returns. And I think that Mark is right on the money in that it's better to just give it to everybody and see what happens. He actually agrees with Elon on that. I think not making it an altruistic endeavor, which is sort of what OpenAI has gotten in trouble with, is like, hey, we're going to try to be the altruists with AI, but also, having a business model diversified away from it, or where AI is enabling it, is exactly the right approach, I think, for everybody. Which is try to make your existing business model better with AI instead of rebuild your business model from the ground up. So I really like Mark. I think he's a brilliant, like once in a generation type entrepreneur. Maybe it's because it's the first real entrepreneur for my generation that made it big. But I'm looking to kind of hear your take on it, because I think this is a piece of news that's getting well covered, but I don't think it's getting covered in the right way.
Yeah, well, he's getting older, and sometimes with age, wisdom comes. Not always, but sometimes wisdom comes. And I think got off on the wrong track. I don't know how many years it's been now since Facebook started, maybe 20. I don't know what the
I think
span
20
is.
years.
Yeah. But he had a mission statement, move fast and break things. And I think it put him on the negative side of the spectrum. And he was really brash, and he's not particularly personable. I think he's trying to become more personable.
Yeah.
And he did break a lot of things. He broke the advertising model. I think Google and Facebook. I'll just call it Facebook because it's easier for
That
me. And
works.
I don't know what Meta. Yeah, I know what Facebook is. Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, the number was like 60% of all online advertising came through those two. And a lot of things got destroyed because of that. The entire print industry basically got destroyed, magazines, newspapers. And I always remember when Harvey Weinstein was convicted of
Yeah.
sexual abuse and sent off to prison. He's still in that process. Um, the New York Times knew about him. They had articles written about the negative side for many, many years, but they couldn't trigger it because so much of their advertising was coming from Miramax, which was the film company. And my sense is the advertising dropped to such a point that it was acceptable at New York Times to spread all the news about him, you
Hmm.
know, but they couldn't as long as he was the big, the ad dollar that was coming through New York Times. So, yeah, I don't dislike him, but I had a sense that he was very totalitarian in terms of what he wanted to achieve in the marketplace. And the other thing is that I believe that all predictions about technology are guesses and bets.
Hmm.
You're making a guess and you're making a big bet, but it's AI has introduced, from my standpoint, AI has introduced an entirely new factor, and I think it's much bigger than the internet itself. I think the reason
Yeah.
is I don't think it's artificial intelligence. I think it's human intelligence enhancement. It actually enhances human intelligence. So I think he's just responding to the way it's going. It's not going in 2024 as far as I can see, the way it was predicted at the end of 2022.
No, I don't think it is at all. I think there are some things that, have been much faster. Um, and there have been some things that have been so much slower. I mean, self-driving cars are, I was just talking with my lovely girlfriend Miranda last night about self-driving cars, and she said she was watching something where we were talking about how with self-driving cars, it's not like you have a teenager who's observed the world for 16 years, and now you put them behind the wheel of a car and they pick it up in 2, 3, 4, 5 days. The basics. It's like you have a newborn and you have to teach a newborn the entirety of the world. And then you finally get them to teenager age, and then they need 3, 4, 5, 6 days. But what she said she thought was funny was she heard somebody say, if you want to bake an apple pie, first you must create the universe. And so I think that's exactly right. Is a lot of people are selling AI, and I wanted to kind of turn a little bit to the AI hype and hear your opinion on it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are selling AI, and even Peter Diamandis's book, The Future is Faster Than You Think. I don't know, but it doesn't feel right to me. It feels like it's much more unexpected. I think it's the outcome of all the tinkering that
Mhm.
everybody's doing with these AIs. It's making it much more expected, but to say that it's coming faster, I'm not sure if I necessarily agree or
Mhm.
not.
Yeah. One thing I'd be interested in, because you've been deep into this long before, ChatGPT came out. I mean, you had a good decade since your teens, of, sensing that this is a great new thing and becoming familiar with it, creating a business model around it and being successful
Mhm.
in your model. What did you think when it came out at the end of 2022, and what do you think now? Because you're actually working with check writing customers and how they're using it. So what have you observed since, going on 2 years?
Um, I don't know if I've admitted this publicly. When I first saw
We don't have to
ChatGPT,
send it. We don't have to send this.
when I
This
first saw ChatGPT, I thought it was a toy. Um, because the form of it in a chatbot, I thought was a toy. Because the the sort of AIs where it can start to create language, they've been around for quite a while. And I thought, oh, what a really interesting sort of package that we put it in. But it seems to me that it's like a toy. And what I've come to is, I think first of all, with respect to ChatGPT or these large language models and these chatbots in particular, I think making it a toy is the most important thing, because that's where the tinkering comes in. If it feels like work, nobody's going to do it. But when it feels like fun and it's pleasurable to experience or to be curious about what's about to come, I think you get the outsized outcomes. But mostly what I've learned is there's a massive separation between Silicon Valley and how tech first companies, software first companies are using or thinking about or talking about AI, and the rest of the world. I kind of call it tech and everybody else. And I think that the rest of the world is 5, 10 years behind how Silicon Valley has been using technology. I mean, quite frankly, when we build automations, because we measure success in number of hours automated. So we call it AI, but we define AI as just computers doing stuff. We almost never need advanced AI neural network type technology. It's almost always just automating the teamwork that you already have. And my sense is that so many businesses are so far behind on their adoption of technology that this wave is just beginning, and we haven't yet seen, I think, all the efficiencies that can be gained from all the non-software businesses. So like, I think we're going to see a renaissance of non-software businesses where gross margins become better, business becomes easier and more predictable. You can grow a lot faster without necessarily needing to increase your headcount. Your churn rate, your employee churn rate goes way down because employee satisfaction is higher. And so I think that we're going to see people actually leaving the tech businesses. I think the tech businesses are harder than ever to start, and the non-tech businesses are easier than ever to build.
Yeah. You use the word 10 years behind, but my sense is, and my involvement with technology really starts with, aside from the technologies that we're using in the company, we've always been big Apple fans. We start 87 was, basically everything's Apple. But my conversational involvement has been Abundance 360. And my sense is the Silicon Valley is 10 years behind understanding human nature.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, if that little, maybe 50 years.
Yeah.
And I think that humans do things for their reasons, not ours. In other words, every human being. I'm writing a book right now, which is called Timeless Technology. Okay, and the main thing, I make a distinction that what differentiates human beings from all other species on the planet is technology. We're the technology species.
Mhm.
And what I say, technology isn't necessarily a thing. Technology is a way of thinking about things. Okay, and the first chapter is any improvement will suggest another one.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I think that that's brilliant. I was just listening to a podcast from a guy who he's in Silicon Valley now, but he's originally from Texas. One of the things I think is funny, by the way, as a small deviation, but I think you can tell the difference between Silicon Valley and the rest of the world just in the flag of California. They call it the Republic of California.
Mhm.
Like, it's already its own republic. It just happens to be associated with the other 49. But this guy was saying it's an old podcast, a couple years old. But one of the things he said, I think that it's so crucial, is he said action produces information. And so I couldn't agree more that one piece of technology or a piece of technology well used creates the next step. So sort of like walking through the foggy forest.
Yeah, yeah. My cartoonist who really explores a lot of technology, and he does exactly what the aim of your company is. that every year, just by him exploring new technologies, I get the equivalent of another one of him in productivity every year.
Oh, it's perfect.
No, I do.
It is,
And
and they're a total hero.
I don't tell him this. It's just what he's interested in. And you know, we have projects, we have deadlines and everything else. And he said, how can I make this easier and faster? You know, how do I do this? And so I think your thesis from the, you know, the beginning of this podcast is exactly correct. Humans are just going to use it the way they want to use it, and they don't really care what other people like Silicon Valley's intentions are, what Silicon Valley, we don't really care, you know. You know,
Yeah.
if it's useful, you know, if it's useful, and it increases creativity, productivity, and profitability. Those are the three for an entrepreneur that you're looking for. That's what they're going to do. But I don't think it's predictable because I don't think humans are predictable.
I completely agree. And I think that there's so many little things happening all at once, which is what I think makes AI different than the internet. Because with the internet, the big thing, you know, I barely remember the internet age. But if I had to go back, the big thing with the internet was first you had to have a computer. And so there was this barrier to entry where you had to buy this expensive piece of technology that you didn't really know how to use, that you were just going to like hope was going to pan out and turn into something that was going to make you more productive. And we didn't have the mobile phone, right? And the connection was slow, and now we have all those sort of like we have all the wiring and all the plumbing figured out already, which makes it so that it's much easier for people to both pick up the AIs or pick up the tools and drop the tools if they're not serving you.
Mhm.
I want to
Yeah.
get your opinion on something. I had a really interesting experience a couple of weeks ago. I consider myself to be um, sort of a ruthless experimenter with a lot of these AIs or in interesting ways to use the AIs. Um, and I try to make it only so it's productive. I don't want to just like, you know, mess. I don't want to tinker just to tinker. I'm not the kind of guy who's in the garage just curious about what happens if. I'm more like I have a desired outcome that I'm hoping to achieve. And so that led me down the path of being a pseudo data scientist. And I am not a data scientist. I've taken one statistics course in my life. It did not go very well. Anyway, after working with ChatGPT for about 8 hours, I had accomplished what I thought was probably a month-long project with a contractor, and it probably would have cost between $15,000 and $25,000. It was just me and ChatGPT. Now, my thought was that the reason for this was because I asked great questions to the AI, and because I had a clear sort of like envisionment of what I wanted the future to be. It's like, here's where I am, here's where I want to become, and I need you to help me get there. But what I was wondering is, do you think that do you think that these AIs really are just a reflection of the person using them? Or do you think that over time, you know, we could essentially give them less and less information or do more and more drive-by delegations and they actually will become that capable? My sense is no. My
Yeah.
sense is it's a reflection of the person using it. But it was the first time in a while that I'd been like, whoa, like I
Mhm.
didn't know anything to start and now I have this output.
Yeah. When it comes to technology, I'm very monogamous. So you told me about Perplexity, and Perplexity's my AI mate, you know. And one night I just came up. I had read five novels by a German, um, Kutcher Volker or something like that. And it's about Germany in the late 1920s and early 1930s, right at the beginning of the Nazi period. And there were just a major theme underneath all the stories, and it's about detectives in Berlin and crime detective. But the whole background of it is this coming storm of Nazism. And what I asked it, my prompt was, to what degree were the conditions of Nazism actually created by the attempt by the high command of the German army at the end of the First World War to accept no blame for the defeat, but to blame it on citizens and blame it on the politicians back home. And so I put it in, and again, and I use a interface, tell me 10 reasons why this is so, and 10 seconds later I've got my 10 reasons. And then we went deeper, and there were some things I wanted to ask because of the answer. Okay, and I started to answer, but I had the thread going, and I spent about 4 or 5 hours on this thread over a period of 2 or 3 days. And and so they suggest questions, further things to look at, and then I would think of further things to prompt. And at the end of the 3 days, I said, I probably have the equivalent of a PhD here. I have looked at this issue from so many different angles, and I'm taking it in, and it really reinforced my hunch that started it off.
So
And
let me ask you, what
but
percentage
the big
of,
thing,
yeah.
I don't think anyone else would have done this search.
No. But I do think that you have some fairly unique ways of using the AI and of asking the questions, especially with the 10 ways. I think most people would they'd get tired after way number 7, but you stick all the way to number 10.
Yeah.
Or they'd say, give me the headlines. What percentage of that PhD do you think came from your asking great questions and asking follow-up questions and digging in? And
Yes.
what percentage of the PhD do you think came from the fact that you didn't have to go searching for the information that was delivered to you?
I think it's a combination of the two. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My sense is that each of my, further, and I think you said this, Perplexity is not a search engine, it's an answer engine.
Mm-hmm.
That I was having a conversation with it, and it's got the unique ability of anything that even sounds like what I'm asking for, it pulls it in and contextualizes it. It does a good job. It does a good job of staying on topic. Perplexity is really great on staying on topic. It doesn't wander and everything like that. But I felt my intelligence enhanced from that 3-day experience. So one of the things I think is not obvious at all, because it's not really the intent of the tech makers, that you should become smarter and smarter in a unique way. I don't think I'm not saying they're against that. It's just not their intent. So I think one of it is that there's an amazing amount of AI work going on in the world that is not detectable at all by the big tech inventors and everything else. And since they're giving their attention to their search, their answer search, they're not giving their attention to what perhaps the high-tech industry really wants you to be paying attention to.
What I think is so interesting, I want to kind of double click on that. So several years ago, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, he brought in this, or he was kind of introducing this new framework that they were talking about, which was decreasing the marginal cost of intelligence. They were saying, okay, so the computers are going to get so much smarter that the cost of intelligence is going to go down. What you're proposing, which I think is so interesting, and I don't quite know how to frame this yet, is that there's going to be an increase in the value of, the unique knowledge that you have, or in how deep you're willing to go into the subject areas that interest you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the thing, and I'm not saying this is what AI is going to be used for, but it can be used this way, but the other one I think is some of the collaborative tools are increasing too. Steve Krine, who, Free Zone member, and he's got this network of 550 at last count, 550 health startups in 26 countries. And he's got a model for them. It's taking your startup model to down several avenues, depending on your choice, that you're just going to grow it and grow it and grow it, and you're going to become a public corporation. That's one. Number two is that you're just going to bring in a lot of investors to expand. And number three, you're going to sell it. You know, you're going to get it to a certain point and sell it. And he's got a coaching program because he created one of the first internet advertising agencies around 1998, 96, and sold it 6 weeks before the dot-com crash. And
Whoa.
so he did well. He,
Yeah.
he bought himself a lot of future. and and but he was just saying how much he's noticing, because the biggest area right now of the startups are those who are looking at diabetes and Alzheimer's, which have now been established as a continuum, that Alzheimer's really starts with diabetes. You know, that it's a blood sugar, you know, irregularity, and then gradually it develops into the stages of Alzheimer's. But he was saying that there are the tools that are available now to put the different startups together in groups of maybe 10, 12, and they're just talking to each other. He says, just amazing the results and how things are speeding up, simply because they're not just doing their thing, they're hearing about 11 other things at the same time.
Interesting. Interesting. And are they crediting that just to technology getting better? Are they crediting that to AI? You know, where are they?
He says it's very definitely speeded up since AI. You know, they used to have, you know, Zoom chats, you know, and they'd get together, but now they can there's tools that, you know, and Steve's pretty alert to the new tools. And anyway, but he said that he feels that he's creating a R&D network that can't be matched by a large corporation, because he's got not just 12, but he might have 25 or 30 independent entrepreneurial companies that are doing it. And he says they're just producing better research than the others. And so I see two things happening right now, simply because I'm seeing that what my strategic coach clients are actually using AI for. The one is their own intelligence, enhancing their own intelligence. And the other one is collaborating, encouraging greater collaboration and facilitating greater collaboration.
Well, what I think is interesting is I've kind of had this hunch. I still don't quite know the best way to put it into words, but that with a lot of these AI tools getting better and better and better, I think we have more and more capable individual contributors and team members, which in my opinion makes it not so that the individual contributor, the team member is replaceable. It just makes collaboration that much more important. Because I think that's where the bigger and bigger outcomes are going to become. And so my sense is that over the last 20 or 30 years, you know, we really were empowering individual contributors to get more done in the same amount of time. But I think that over the next 20 years, thanks to a lot of these tools, getting the task done is going to be faster, but the collaboration is going to be more important and more exponential.
Yeah, yeah. So, but one of the things about both of these is that it's not that much detectable on the outside of the actual situation, either the individual, the way I described my search, and also Steve's collaborating. You know, that's not really detectable in the outside world.
Right. Nor is it, in my opinion, a headline catching conversation. You know, we're going to reshape society is great for headlines. But people are going to get smart. People get PhD level information in 4 or 5 days is not.
Yeah. What was the word you used, that we're changing society?
Yeah, society changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or society transforming.
Society's changing itself without anyone knowing how it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think having some folks in California telling us how society is changing is probably going to be the most likely outcome. If
Well, I
anything,
think that
yeah.
I've noticed, I read the Wall Street Journal, the actual newspaper, 6 times a week. And I'm just catching headlines about there's a certain sense of unease, and in some cases almost panic, that the huge investments that large corporations, because the Wall Street Journal is really, it's the corporation paper, the Fortune 500, what it is, that they've piled an enormous amount of money into AI in the last year and a half, and they're not seeing the results. And I'm
Hmm.
saying, well, that's because you're a corporation. You wouldn't encourage individual enhancement, and you wouldn't encourage collaboration across boundary lines inside the corporation.
Yeah. Okay, look, I'm going to test the theory. If we think that unexpected outcomes are really coming from two things, which is number one, your ability or anybody's ability to drive lots and lots and lots of intelligence or gain lots of information, lots of wisdom in a short amount of time, or lots of information, lots of knowledge in a short amount of time. I'll remove wisdom from that. And two, help people collaborate a lot better or facilitate much more collaboration. Then shouldn't, I think a couple of things. First of all, shouldn't corporations' AI investments be driven not from the finance department out, but from, the bottom levels of the team up? But then second of all, wouldn't that mean that there's even more emphasis on your ability to ask great questions? Because the biggest outcomes from the collaborations are going to be coming from who's asking the best questions, and then the one person with the most specific knowledge can provide more
Mhm.
answers, more information, more insight, right? Like, to me, my hunch is that the best collaborations come from people asking the best questions,
Mhm.
and your unique ability, your following your unique ability and going as deep into it as you can is going to be what creates that exponential outcome, which is probably why I think a lot of these corporations aren't getting the returns that they need to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one thing, and I just drew a little diagram while you were talking about this, that the internet was about getting great answers,
Mm, yeah.
and in the sense that what it was portrayed, that people whose business is to give great answers got rewarded, and they started testing you for that, at age 8. You went through the SATs, the ACTs, and everything else, and you got great. And it was based on answers. It wasn't based on questions. It was based on answers.
Hmm.
And I'm just wondering if the introduction of regenerative AI has moved us over where your success is really based on your ability to ask great questions. And I've met far more people who are good at answers than I have at questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think, answers can be trained in a school.
Yeah, yeah. You can
Yeah,
memorize.
you get a degree for your answers.
Yeah.
Right. Right. The teachers don't get bonuses because they wrote the best test questions. And what I think is interesting about it is, I've been thinking a lot about, in the age of AI, what happens with consultants.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have great answers for it yet.
Well,
But
I think it depends. There's probably a spectrum from
yeah,
horrible to superb. There's probably
yeah.
a spectrum, and I suspect they really good consultants are they're employing AI in their consulting work. They're doing it. I mean, people are still looking for answers. I mean, I'm not saying that people aren't looking and that answers don't matter. Uh, I think they are less important in people's minds because I don't think answers engage the brain at all. I think questions really engage the brain.
Hmm.
I mean, our podcast so far this morning has been a tennis match of I'm gonna lob one I'm going to lob a question right back at him, and you're going to do it. And we're both getting answers out of the question. So I'm thinking that maybe I think questions brings out human consciousness far more. I don't think answers bring out any human consciousness at all. It's just the ability to memorize and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that questions, how do you come up with a question? Well, it can't be programmed how someone comes up with a question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's where all the unexpected outcomes are coming from.
Oh yeah.
Is because you can't I think that you're nailing it. And over the last, since the internet started, the focus was on getting the best answers.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think the focus is on getting the best questions, which is
Yeah.
probably kind of like stringing this thread all together. That's probably why I got such great outcomes doing my little data science project for 8 hours one day. I also think probably this is a big part of the answer to what happens with consultants is, if you, like, in my opinion, if you look at the difference between a consultant and a coach, consultants deliver answers and coaches deliver questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so the best coaches probably continue to get better, but the value of an answer goes down, down, down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're readily available, I mean, the work that you spent where you had the $25,000 payoff from the client, without AI, how long would it have taken you to hour-wise to produce something that would have triggered it?
Including beating my head against the wall.
Yeah.
Probably, I mean, it would have taken a month, 2 months, 3 months, and an enormous amount of energy.
And you wouldn't have liked the work.
No, I would have hated it. But I couldn't sleep the night after because I was so excited about how well it went.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was with that original question for 3 days. It was just going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I don't think it starts with ChatGPT. I think it's a growing unhappiness in the public with the answers they're getting from media, the answers they're getting from leadership, that there's a frustration with the answers.
Yeah.
One is, you gave me an answer, but it wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I think it's very funny when Abundance 360 first started, we had a trial meeting in Silicon Valley at Mountain View, where Google is. And so it was Peter Diamandis and it was Ray Kurzweil. And so, Ray's got his thing about the singularity, and I think it's techno-religion. The more I hear it, I think it's techno-religion, it's
Yeah.
And I talked to Ray about that. I said, "Are you religious?" And he said, No, but my family wasn't religious at all, but they thought it was important for us to know what the religions are, the main religions in the world. So on Sunday nights, we would discuss Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. Those are the 5 big ones. So anyway, I found that very, very interesting. And my sense is that if you go to Perplexity today and you say, "Give me the 10 characteristics that tells me that you've created a religion," it could give me those 10 things. And I think Ray knew what those 10 things were. And he took the idea of the singularity, which wasn't his idea. It came from the early computer guys in the 1950s. And he said, "I'll just turn the singularity into a religion." And it's sort of like a salvation. It's like the Messiah coming. At one point, the computers will be so intelligent, they'll take care of us and protect us from our own humanity, and so I got that it was techno-religion. It didn't have anything to do with technology, and it's not even an interesting prediction. But then he was talking about the crossover when computers are greater than human intelligence, which I think they already are in many.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
I mean, if you credit perplexity of instantly getting answers, well, that intelligence is far greater than mine.
Yeah. Yeah,
But so,
I agree.
but so is the thermostat in my house.
Right.
I mean, if I had to keep the house at the right temperature every day, I'm a 10 quick start. I would wear out in 3 hours. But anyway, and so what I'd suggest here, I went up to him and I said, when you talk about intelligence, Ray, are you talking about consciousness? And he says, well, nobody knows what consciousness is. And I said, well, I think it has something to do with thinking. I think it has something to do with intelligence. Okay. But it's not measurable. So I've really had, a long search since the internet came in of any progress being made in understanding human consciousness. And this is how much progress has been made in the last 40 years of understanding human consciousness. And part of the reason is that it's subjective. It's completely subjective. You can't detect it. And the other thing is it's not measurable. You can't apply any kind of scientific measurement to consciousness. We had no idea when the podcast started today where this podcast was going. We literally just created it. You out of your consciousness, me out of my consciousness. And there's no way to track how that actually happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my sense, yeah.
No, you're up. You're up.
No, I'm just saying this crossover from answers to questions seems to me that we're entering into the realm where people can really use their conscious now to find out the things that they need to find out.
That was the exact thing that I was going to repeat back to you. My sense is that that's absolutely correct. And I think that, if we look at, I think the societal changes that are coming or are happening thanks to AI, the more that I'm thinking about this, even just during this podcast, the more I'm thinking that the most valuable team members in every organization that we work with, the people that are the most confident in their capabilities, in a new AI age, when the outcomes are very unexpected, the people that seem to be embracing it the most are the people that seem to be the ones that ask the most and the best questions. Mm-hmm. And to the folks and I even describe it like this, to the folks, which is this is such a delight, the folks where they really feel like their value is in their answers. They're the most AI resistant type folks because it just doesn't work for me. Well, I think the reason it doesn't work is because the equation is flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah. The entirety is about the question.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, to give an analogy, that they're the people who their meal is eating the package rather than the contents of the package. They're, there's no nutrition.
Well, and I've had this personal vendetta against quiet, but every time somebody asks, I kind of get on my high horse. I've had this personal vendetta against this idea of prompt engineering with these AIs. And so there are all these hacks and all these tricks and all these different things that you have to do in order to engineer your prompt in the right way so that you can get the answer that you want. And I think that where that comes from is it comes from a lot of people placing lots of emphasis on answers, saying, I've got the answer to be able to use this new piece of technology. Whereas when people ask me, what's the best prompt engineering that you can do? I say, okay, take out your phone and then just use voice to text and just start talking. And I promise you're going to get a better output than whatever the 101st trick of AI is. And I really think that, even just that method of pull out your phone and speak out loud is getting people closer and closer to consciousness and further away from the textbook, further and further away from, the white paper.
Yeah. Evan, you mentioned something earlier in the podcast, and you said that you think that the big change that's happening right now, that it's the AI is really providing great tools that make starting a business a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Steve crying the other day when I was talking to him about what he was using AI for, he said, I think what's happening is that there's a democratizing of entrepreneurship
Interesting.
that's becoming more available for more people without the huge capital cost or the, that you don't have to have huge capital costs to start a business these days.
Mm-hmm.
But my sense is that I think the barrier is still the same, that if entrepreneurship is an answer, you're probably not going to be a very good entrepreneur. If entrepreneurship is a question, you're probably going to be a constant growth entrepreneur for your entire life. I'm not sure I said that right, but there seems to be this real division between the world of answers and the world of questions.
Yeah. My sense is, I think it kind of actually goes into freedom from and freedom to. And your freedom from having to know the answers to everything. And freedom to, be able to explore your curiosities
Mhm.
and in a way that feels most natural.
Yeah.
And I think that where the barriers to entry for entrepreneurship are going down is that the capital required to, I think that both you and Steve are correct. The capital required to get an idea off the ground for any, like, maybe very small, very niche, very unique vertical, I think is like the real game changer here. And so if you're looking for freedom, like freedom from answers or freedom to ask questions, I think that you're going to be a big winner in the entrepreneurial age, because you can even start a one-person business that, it doesn't have to be huge, but it can be your unique ability or it can be your unique passion.
Mhm.
But if what you're looking for is you're looking for like freedom from questions and entrepreneurship is the answer. If you're looking for freedom from uncertainty and entrepreneurship is the answer, I think you're in for a world of hurt. So I think it'll create more churn in the entrepreneurial marketplace. But my hunch is there are going to be lots more small businesses that are very niche, that are very unique, and ultimately very, very helpful.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So yesterday was the 50th anniversary since I launched my first coaching business. So
Congratulations.
1974. Yeah. And the interesting thing was I was just really interested because I was going to coach entrepreneurs. I was pretty clear about that from the beginning. And I checked some, ways of determining how many entrepreneurs there are. And actually, the Internal Revenue Service is really the best, the best source of information is what kind of tax return do people put in, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was 5% of the adult working population, because, 1974, not many people under adulthood, in their teens and that were creating businesses. Now, a lot of people in their teens and 20s are creating businesses, yourself being an example. And so I checked, not last year, but about 2 years ago, I checked, still 5%.
Really? Including like independent contractors and all that?
Wow. You
Wow.
have a different kind of tax return.
What I was just thinking is I was
Well,
expecting you to say it was double.
the
The population grew.
the
Yeah.
population is a lot bigger.
Yeah. So the absolute number of entrepreneurs has grown.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
What I
yeah.
was thinking
But
is,
not the percentage of the working population, and now here's the thing. I think that working for someone else, and the way that you're doing it with your clients, people are going to become more entrepreneurial as employees. I
I
mean,
think that's
the
absolutely.
way that you're enabling them with the tools, to make their jobs profitable, make their jobs more productive as an entrepreneurial, but they're still depending upon the employer to guarantee that there's income that pays their salaries.
Yeah. Well, I think that in the world of AI, in the world of advancing technology in general, I think that unique ability becomes more important as the technology gets more advanced. And my sense is, going back to questions and answers, the real backbone behind unique ability is that you ask questions for fun that most other people haven't asked before, or that people without your unique ability haven't asked before. And so as people get more entrepreneurial in their careers, I think it's really going to come down to that unique ability with people getting more specialized, more unique, getting that more specific knowledge, and then they apply it in totally different ways with the collaboration that everybody else is, or with collaborating with everybody else who's also doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that yeah, it's very interesting. Peter Zion just dropped in one of his books, I forget, or maybe it was one of his podcasts or his videos that he puts online. But he measured the size of organizations, and I think this was around 2020, and he went back 25 years, and this would have been 1995. And he said that if you take all the corporations, just the United States, he's talking about, you take all the corporations in the United States, and 99% of them are small. And by incorporation, you mean that when you create a business, it's called a corporation, even if it's even if it's one person. Yeah, it's a corporation. And he found that the average number 25 years ago was 24. If you took into account all the corporations in the world, in the United States, it was 24. And 25 years later, it was 12.
I think that's great. I think it's great. And it's going back to, I think, what Steve was saying with entrepreneurship being democratized. I also think company growth is being democratized. And so you no longer need all the capital required in order to be able to make it work. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, in a certain sense, who you are in relationship to your customers, you're a CTO, you're a fractional CTO.
Yeah, and I think,
and I see a lot more of that. I mean, for example, we have a fractional marketing person, and we have a fractional financial officer, the Babs. You know, they talk to it, but they each have other clients that they're doing with, and I think they're richer for having a lot of different things that they're working on rather than one.
Absolutely, they get a wider breadth of experience. I think number one. Number two is by having fractional folks involved. I'm a huge proponent of it because I think you first of all, you can like kind of pop your head above the trees every once in a while. You can see your clients from a different perspective. But in a world where collaboration is so important, now even your clients, if you're a fractional CTO and you have a great client over here and you have a great client over here, they're probably going to be great collaborators with each other.
Oh yeah.
If they like you as much as you like them.
And I think that's what Chad Jenkins is doing. I think that's his model.
Yeah, and I think it's totally the model of the future. It's like when it really comes down to it, you've got a unique ability individual helping lots of people in their unique ability, connecting them together. Oh, what's not to love?
Yeah.
Dan, I really appreciate your time. This was so fun.
Yeah. Thank you.